Hey everybody, this is Perch. This is one of those videos based on hearsay, so here we go. Hey, that sounds fun, right? Anyway, let's get this viewer question out of the way, and then we can kind of talk about the nuts and bolts of it. So it says, "Hey Perch, I've been listening to videos on other channels, and one thing a number of them are saying recently, including channels that you've been on." And I've only been on one channel, so I'm assuming you're talking about Thinking Critical. They say that working at DC and Marvel is really shitty right now, and that the companies are dismal, and that they have inside sources that tell them that things are really, really bad. Do you think that's true? On one hand, I want to believe it's true because the comics themselves are pretty terrible, but on the other hand, people keep taking money from these companies and working for them. So really, how bad can they be? Ah, the joys of corporate work. Anyway, would love to hear your thoughts on the matter. Love your show. Thank you for everything you do. Please don't let the haters get you down. Most of them are assholes. Okay, fair enough. I'll keep that in mind. Um, I don't know. It is. I'll say this. I've said this before. I don't think people believe me when I say this. The channel's like it will exist, and then one day I'll be like, you know what, I'm done, and it'll be over. It really is. It's not. I don't mean it like casually, and I very much thank all the people who listen and subscribe. I know that there's a website out there that's claiming that I hate all the fans of the channel, and because I talk down to them. I really appreciate it. I love all of you, and I mean it. I will happily buy you guys a beer. It's just I'm not in this to kind of grow a cult, and I think I think that I don't see people posting like all hail Perch, like, oh, gross. If somebody started doing that, I would seriously question my life decisions. That's not what I want. So I'm glad people have their own minds. Anyway, in terms of this question, well, let me get the obvious thing out of the way. Why do people do shitty jobs even though they don't like them? For money. That's why. Turns out money is important, and people will do all kinds of shitty things for money. And sad to say, that's what happens in comics quite a bit. Is people do terrible, shitty things for money. They work in jobs they don't like for money. I've done consulting gigs. I censored myself in the middle of that. I've done many consulting gigs where I didn't have any passion for it, but I do have a passion for supporting my family and myself. So I took the gig, and it's like somebody's going to offer you. I mean, there was one job. It's like this is going to pay $1.2 million over the course of 18 months, and you just got to suck it up and do it. And it's like, yep, I'll do that job. I'll suck it up and I'll do it. And it sucked. Hands down, I spent more time away from my family than I wanted to. I didn't enjoy it. I felt like I was working with a bunch of idiots. But, at the end of the day, I banked that cash and I moved on. And that's how the world works. So are there people at Marvel and DC who are not enamored with everything the company is doing but are still working there because of cash? Hell yes. Tons of people. And in comics, at least, it has an extra layer, an extra dimension where people work there, and because they know that to get that kind of mark on their resume, to get that work experience, to be in the industry doing that, I mean, it's important for their indie career. The networking aspect of comics is pretty significant. So, yeah, I mean, that's what plays into a lot of this. So, all that said, here's the weird part, and look. This is my opinion, and you can disagree with me any which way you want. I've talked to a number of creators at the Big Two, more big names at DC than Marvel, I would say. And when I say big names, I don't, they're certainly the people who are, who have done interviews here, but also other bigger names. Man, they're going to hate that I described it that way. I don't mean it that way. I mean, look, I'll take some of the people I've talked to over some of the, on the air that you guys all know about. I'll take some of them any day of the week over some of the people that I don't mention on the air. Absolutely, they're good friends. There's a couple of them that I legitimately call friends, and if you've listened to this channel, I do not use that word lightly. It's a pretty major word. You get to this point of like, here's somebody I'll help, and then here's somebody that I will help at the expense of myself. So definitely, there's people that fit into that category who have done it. Who've certainly been. You guys know, you've heard on this channel. I will. Oh, no. Let me leave it there. But I've talked to some big names at Marvel. I think I have a decent network at both companies. I talk to people and they say things. Here's the thing: most people are not having a terrible time. They're doing okay. There's a genuine enthusiasm. There's frustration with a company, but not like, oh my God, the company is super shitty and awful and everything is about to fall apart and oh my God, it's a shit show to work for. Not really. I mean, I think if you could get, some people some drinks and you can say, hey, what's the worst part of your job? Definitely there's going to be people who will talk about it. What do people talk about it at Marvel or DC? I don't know. Editorial interference, the fact they throw in a pitch that, sits on the shelf for like months at a time and nobody seems like they know what the fuck they're doing. There's weird scheduling stuff where finally a comic moves forward and then another comic that is remarkably similar in tone moves forward at the exact same time, which is a absolutely stupid marketing programming move, but the company does it anyway and everybody's frustrated. You'll hear lots of stories like that. There are definitely plenty of stories like that. At the same time, you talk to Josh Williamson, he's having a good time. He legitimately likes the company that he works for. He thinks that they're doing, good, decent stuff. It is a lie to say that they're sitting around talking about how terrible the company is and it's going to fall apart any day of the week, and they just hate it. You talk to James Tinian. You talk to James. James, even though he is doing his work on Substack, even though he's doing his own thing, he has a genuine like for DC. He believes he can make more money, and at the moment, he is making more money doing his own thing. But he does not. James, one way you can sniff out bullshit. And by the way, this is not a shot at Wes. Wes did not say anything about James, so I'm calling somebody out specifically, meaning James Tinian. So he did not do that. So keep that. Do not start any internet feud bullshit on me. James is, if you know James, he does not shit on the company he works for or even he previously worked for. He doesn't do it. He is a pretty upright, upstanding guy. He it just, you can always tell when somebody's lying. It was not a Bleeding Cool article. One of these, maybe it's Cosmic Book News. I don't know, so I'm not going to call it out. But somebody's like, James Tinian goes off on DC. Bullshit. He did not. I'm sorry. Again, lots of people say lots of different things. You get somebody at a con with some drinks, they will certainly tell you some things that are frustrating them. But, if people who report that like Tinian is shitting on the company, no. Fuck no, he is not. Anyone who knows Tinian knows that is bullshit. Kind of the same thing. Scott Snyder is another one. Snyder will certainly express frustration in certain areas at times. He is not going to shit on the company. In fact, if anything, and I say this with all due love, because I know Snyder, I know he listens to this from time to time, with all love and respect. If there was one negative you could say about Snyder is that he looks for the positive on things. Sometimes more than he should, and I would tell him that direct. I think I have told him that directly. I think Snyder is, again, he's not a person who's going to go, oh, fuck DC. Now, by contrast, if you talk to hell, why you don't even need to take my word for it. I did the interview with Gabe, who was the colorist for the Son of Kal-El series for a few of the issues there before the I do not remember the number, like issue 8, issue 9, whenever the bisexual reveal came out. It was right about that time. But he was a colorist for several of those issues, and he clearly doesn't like DC. So if you came to me and said, hey, Gabe says DC is a fucked up place to work, I'm like, yep, that checks out. I've heard it from other places. I've heard it directly. Sure. If you're going to tell me, hey, Scott Snyder and James Tynion say that DC's all fucked up, like, yeah, I'm going to say no. Sorry. It just, it doesn't wash. So I guess, but all this is hearsay, what people say, what don't say. I mean, the answer is, so, okay, fuck all those people. How is Marvel to work with? How is DC to work with? And the answer to that is, yeah, it's probably not great. I mean, look, if you're a creative person who has these kind of amazing ideas, and you have this, you're a writer who really wants to just kind of do some huge out of the box stuff. You love kind of the stories of yesteryear, and you want to kind of make your own mark on the company. Probably going to be a pretty frustrating place to work. Now, none of those names I mentioned are going to say that because, one, they kind of want to keep working for those companies, so they're not going to shit where they eat, is I think the expression. But they've still got active work. It's just they're smarter than that to a large extent. Why I say it's frustrating? Well, because it's kind of, it's like any corporate job. You come in, you're like, what I would do if I was a writer at Marvel, I would take like some of the popular characters and I do this amazing storyline, and then you get all these ideas, and then you hit the brick wall of an editorial corporate machine. It's like, hey, that's a great idea, except you can't do that because we've got a scheduling conflict in March because we're going to do this big event crossover. And then after that, we're going to do this thing. And oh, by the fuck, we got this licensing deal that we got this video game coming out. And so you're going to have to, we got some money here. So we're going to have to go ahead and interrupt whatever run you're on, kind of right in the middle. And by the way, we're going to give you like 6 issues, maybe 12 issues to do a run of a comic, and I know your story is for like 36 issues, but we'll give you 12, and then if everything just kind of magically works out, there's no scheduling conflicts, no event conflicts, no other conflicts, and we remember to pick up the phone when you call, then then things can probably keep going. That's what it's like to work for a corporation, and then certainly a comic corporation. That's what it's like. And so if you're a very, very creative person, kind of sucks. It's not a place you love to work for. Why would you want to do that? It's not enjoyable. And I think that's, quite frankly, if you were to, I've had people ask me, it's like, hey, Perch, why do you think that some of the big name writers, from Nick Spencer to James Tynion and Jonathan Hickman, why are they bothering with Substack? Why would they go do some independent thing that they have complete and entire creative control over versus work on these characters that are known around the world? It's like, because they have complete creative control over the thing that they own themselves. That's why. And there comes a point, and I don't know how many of you have been there, but I mean, I've certainly been there where I'm like, you know what, fuck it. I'm not taking that expensive consulting job because I know that it will feel like just walking into a room and have someone repeatedly punch me in the nuts for 6 months. I can't do it. My nuts are worth more than that to me. I've done 2 or 3 tours of nut punching, and I'm done. Fuck it. I'll make less money and I'll do what I want to do. A lot of people get to that point, and I think that's definitely true. But I don't know. Here's the thing, and again, this is my opinion for what it's worth, talking to many people. People who are big names at Marvel and DC don't shit where they eat. They realize that they are some of the chosen few. This is not the current world, but there was a world, 4 years ago, where there's a couple writers at DC who had a contract that was worth about $1,000 a page. It's a crazy big contract. It was huge. It was way overpaying those writers. Those writers felt very, very fortunate to have that paycheck. And, several of them, one in particular, then just milked that contract like a champ. He absolutely did, because he wanted all the money he could get. And you know what? Fuck it. Who can blame him? Take your cash, son. Why wouldn't you? And but one thing those people didn't do is they didn't burn the company down while they were taking that money. every now and then, and it's always entertaining and amusing for the masses, somebody who's making a lot of money becomes a train wreck in their life, be it, personal or professional, in any case. And that happens when it happens, it's always amazing to watch, because you're watching somebody who is climbed to kind of the top of their industry and then has, for whatever reason, decided to push the self-destruct button, much to the amusement of everyone else. And that is that it's a rare event. It's like an eclipse. You go outside, you don't stare directly at it. You usually look at it through some filters, and you go, "Wow, I don't know what the fuck happened here, but okay, we're in for a show." And that's what you get. But I'll conclude with this: all this bullshit aside, what would be really great? Good comics. Good comics. I could give a fuck what big name, small name, whoever it happens to be at comics are saying about comics. And I guarantee if you go to enough cons, you go to enough shows, you meet enough people, you will hear all kinds of crazy shit. I've heard plenty of crazy shit I'll take to my grave. Some I'll take to my grave because, I haven't even told my wife about, because, oh my God, like, I'm not going to tell another human being, let alone my wife, some of the things I've heard. But, the world somehow moves on. And what I would really love, good comics, good arcs, good series. The personal drama, lots of people do lots of things. Human beings are fucking weird people. And sometimes we hit the self-destruct button on ourselves for no apparent goddamn reason. Everything's going along just fine. It's like, you ever meet, maybe I'll conclude this. There's a guy I knew, good friend of mine, smart, had a pretty good career at one of the big tech company, the biggest tech company in the 90s, let's just put it that way. And he was worth, I don't know, at least 60, 70 million. He had a good life, good money. His wife, smoking hot, definitely good looking wife, good thing, pretty child, good family unit, rich house, everything going great. And he decided to have an affair with a person he worked with who was attractive, but not as attractive as his wife. It was a downgrade. And so, and of course, the wife found out, life blew up, gave her half his money, spiraled into weird drugs and other shit, and he fucked up his entire thing. I don't know where he is now, but he's certainly not the king of industry that he was. And you look at that and you're like, what, on no level does this make sense. It doesn't make sense morally, doesn't make sense financially, doesn't make sense even if you're going purely for tits, because your wife was better looking than the person he had the affair with. But you know what? You self-destructed, and there you go. I don't know how I got onto this. My point is that people are weird, and they do weird things. But a lot of people work for DC and work for Marvel, and the people at the top generally, for what it's worth, my opinion of one, generally the people at the top understand that they've got a bit of a gravy train going, and they do not want to fuck that up. And they certainly, would not run around bad mouthing the company. So that's my opinion on it. Now, could I be wrong? Sure, why not? Totally could be wrong. But search your heart. You know what to be true. Anyway, there you go. Is it good to work at those companies, to answer your letter? Probably not. But what else are you gonna do? Hopefully, go make your own comic. Thanks for listening.